M3GAN is the story of this misfit household with a child, an adult, and a robot. M3GAN, turn off.
Are you sure? I thought we were having a conversation.
This is so creepy. I was like, she is freaky.
It's nice to have a friend. I thought I heard something. It sounded like M3GAN. If she comes in this room, I'll rip your head right off your neck, I swear to God.
I thought about what you said.
About how when something's broken, you don't just throw it away, you fix it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
But don't come in here, Katie. It's kind of a mess.
Aunt Jem is right, Katie. I'm all odds and ends right now. I'd really rather you didn't see me like this. It sounds like you're fighting.
We're not fighting!
Gemma just dropped me on the table. But I'm okay. Clumsy Gemma.
Don't provoke us or we will.
It's insane!
From the get-go, I love the concept of this story. What did you think when you heard about it?
Well, instantly I was in, but I didn't get into it through the concept. Jason Blum reached out and was like, I think we might have our next thing to do with you. And I was already like basically signed on at that point just because I love Jason, and working with Blumhouse went very well the first time. It was such an amazing experience with Get Out. So I was predisposed to be into the idea. And then I just went into the script cold. I just opened it and started reading without reading the description or anything. And so it's not like I came concept first, although I now know that the concept came from James Wan and Akilah Cooper, who wrote the screenplay. Just a doll that has been animated by AI. So that was my in, was just reading the script cold, knowing vaguely who was gonna be involved, and then the script was like such a page turner, I couldn't put it down. And then I loved the character of Gemma. I loved the story. I loved the questions it was asking. I loved the world it put us in, just adjacent to ours, just close enough that it brings up some really uncomfortable questions, things to talk about, and creates horror in this uncanny way that I love. This twisted sense of humor, all of it. Then I spoke to Gerard and I realized that he has this very specific, very unique sense of humor that would lend itself beautifully to the subject matter. And it just felt like this stew that was brewing and perfect, and I just wanted to be a part of it.
And also, it must be so special to be working with two giants of the genre, like James Wan and Jason Blum, right?
Huge. To be part of something where they're teaming up is like, I mean, it's everything. It just felt like, okay, let's do this, but let's like make sure, not that anyone ever sets out to make a mediocre movie, but we really were like, we've got to get it right, because it's got, you know, James and Jason's names on it. This is royalty.
You're right. Let's talk a little bit about Gemma. What a great character. She's a brilliant scientist, okay? Yeah. Really dedicated to her work. But something happens that really is going to throw a wrench into her life.
Yes, which is that she becomes the guardian for her niece. So she loses a sister and a brother-in-law and simultaneously gains a dependent at the same time, at a moment in her career when she is stuck working on something she's lost passion for, desperate to work on the thing that she has a ton of passion for, believes in so much. And also in a moment in life where she probably, in conversations with her friends, when the subject of kids comes up, I'm guessing she's the kind of person, like most of my friends, who say, yeah, maybe someday, but I'm focusing on my job, and that's what I want to focus on right now, but I don't know, maybe if I meet the right person, but I'm not into kids, you know, whatever their answer is. She just felt really relatable to me. I felt like I knew her 100%. And so it was very appealing to me, the idea of playing someone who we meet super invested in her work, a little bit annoyed that she's doing that work in the form of a corporate company, wishing that she could just do what she wants to do and just have funding to do what she's passionate about. And then all of a sudden in the middle of it, she has this horrible thing happen to her, and she improvises by deploying something that she does understand in the face of something she doesn't, by throwing a M3GAN at the problem, so to speak.
So speaking of the problem, what are the challenges that she has in her relationship with her niece, Katie?
Well, I think she just doesn't know Katie that well. I think she sees her occasionally, but no amount of casually knowing a kid is going to prepare you for full-time taking custody of them and taking care of them. Plus, in theory, her biggest role right now should just be to be there for whatever Katie's experiencing, because she's just experienced the worst loss a child can experience, and Gemma just doesn't have those tools, which I think most of us would be totally intimidated and unable to meet that moment. It's such a huge thing to try to walk a child through that she doesn't know where to start, and she kind of can't. She's just sort of at a loss. And so making sure that that she didn't feel like evil in her inability to do that, but instead relatable in her inability to do it was really important, because if she felt ill-intended or anything like that, you lose the audience for the whole movie. It needs to feel like she could be good at this, but she just doesn't know how to do it. She just doesn't have the right words. She doesn't know how to talk to a kid. She doesn't want her to touch any of her toys, which are collector's items in her mind, but toys in the kid's mind. She doesn't know how to tell her kid that she has to go do work. She starts telling her about what's going on at the office, and Katie's just eating toast. She doesn't care. All of those moments I'm hoping will feel really familiar to audience members, but in the moment while you're watching the movie, you're thinking, oh, come on, Gemma, just give her a hug. Just tell her you're here. Tell her to talk. How are you feeling? And she just doesn't know how to do that yet.
But what she does know how to do is create robots and toys. So what happens when she creates M3GAN?
So she has been creating M3GAN for years, and M3GAN experiences a very unfortunate malfunction, but when she's having a conversation with Katie, she gets this idea that M3GAN would be worthwhile in a situation like Katie's, because she might be able to exist as the ideal companion and the last toy she'll ever need, basically. And so when she introduces Katie to M3GAN, it is love at first sight. It is Katie immediately is like, this is what I need, this is my person, and just gives her all her attention to the doll, which then, temporarily at least, Gemma finds to be a huge relief. She feels like she has a partner in taking care of this kid, and also she can keep working on M3GAN so that they can progress it through the stages of her work. That's not great, to put it mildly. We will come to kind of wish that she didn't introduce Katie and M3GAN, but she does.
Well, because she creates M3GAN to protect Katie, but that kind of backfires.
Sure does, yeah. She creates her to protect her, but also she just creates her to bond with her. The protection is kind of like something she doesn't take as seriously as she should when she, protect her from harm, physical and emotional. Those words come out of her mouth in a really intense moment, but they are directions given to M3GAN, and we get to see the result of those directions as the movie plays out.
Speaking of Katie, I thought Violet was brilliant in that role.
She's so good.
What can you say about her?
I just love her. She is so smart. She's so talented. She's so experienced. She's sweet. She's professional. She's kind of got it all. I was very intimidated because Haunting of Hill House I absolutely loved, and I thought she was so good in that series. And I was like, she's way more experienced than I am going to set. She's got this wry sense of humor. She's very dark, and I'm crazy about her. I really like her.
Speaking of sense of humor, I thought Ronny Chieng brought some humor into...
is there a funnier person alive? He's such a blast, and I thought he was so great as David.
Also, how was it for you to actually act opposite M3GAN?
Well, without going into the logistics of how M3GAN is portrayed, because I think it's more fun to just think of her as M3GAN, it was challenging to act opposite her, and it required help from every single department. It was one of those things to achieve in a movie where everyone has to be working together, rowing in the same direction. From a performance standpoint, it was at times super helpful and at times very hard. That depended on what M3GAN was doing. A unique experience. My trickiest co-star by far so far. By
the way, you're playing a robotics engineer, a genius, basically. Yeah. How did you prepare that?
I'm a genius. I'm kidding. I interviewed a lot of people in AI, in robotics, engineers, et cetera. My brain does not work like that. There's a part of my genetic family that is really good at math and engineering and inventing, and I sadly did not get that. So I had to just learn as much as I could about it and try to understand what it would feel like to be that smart, to be that brilliant, what it would be like to work in that environment. But that was as close as I could get, unfortunately. Most of the time when I had these conversations, about 5 minutes in, I just stopped understanding anything they were saying. I was like, okay, explain how these learning models work. And I immediately regretted the question because I was like, I'm lost. I'm so lost. But I think that is just having respect for what she did is the first step. And I have a ton of respect for anyone who makes these things. It's incredible. we can't even, unless it's a field that you're into, it's hard to even fathom how much goes into making something like M3GAN. The conversations were fascinating. I learned so much about the actual programming of AI, the way they learn, all of that, to the way they move and how difficult it would be to actually make something that moves the way M3GAN does, spontaneously and so smoothly, has spontaneous verbal responses and physical responses to things. We're not quite there, but it's not impossible.
And how was your collaboration with Gerard, who directed the movie?
Gerard is amazing. I think the thing about Gerard I admire the most is just his absolute tonal vision for the movie. I'm not sure anyone could have hit the marks that he does, swaying from really dark comedy to camp to drama to tension to horror. I mean, he really hits it all, and yet you still feel like you're in the same movie, which is quite a feat. I think that's kind of his superpower. And we worked on it for a long time, and we talked and prepped about it for a year before we filmed it, and then we've been working on it now for a while. And the whole time was really just a collaboration of trying to get Gemma to a place that felt real, try to get the story to a place where it all felt consistent, all of that stuff that you do to try to polish it into as shiny a diamond as you can before you even film it. And then after the fact, making sure that it feels like it's as strong as it could possibly be. And he was, at the helm of the ship every step of the way.
And what was the energy like on set?
The energy was, we filmed it fast, really quickly. We were in New Zealand. The energy was very much like, we do not have enough time to make this movie. Not even close. We're going to do our best. And one of the stars of the movie, in the form of M3GAN, is very hard to achieve. And we underestimated how difficult it would be to achieve her. And yet we still have the same amount of time to make the movie. So buckle up. Let's get it done. That was the attitude. And everyone was such a good sport and was so talented and professional. And yeah, it was a full team effort. Definitely one of those.
Did you enjoy shooting on location in Canada and New Zealand?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, very much so. It was 2021 in the summer, and it was still a time, as it is now, even on film sets where everyone's masked and you're doing testing. But since we filmed in New Zealand, at that point there wasn't any COVID in New Zealand, so we all, those of us who came in from the US and elsewhere, did the 2-week stay in the isolation hotel. And then once we were through, we were just back in time, pre-COVID, in a normal society, filming normally, which none of us had done for a while at that point. And so that part of it felt like such a privilege. And I loved being in New Zealand. We were in Auckland. It was really nice. Even though it was winter, it was beautiful. The people are phenomenal. Yeah, really good experience.
Following up on what you were saying before about the tone, by the way, I couldn't agree more, how it hits on all these different cylinders.
Yeah.
I feel also that the film had a bit to say about, our dependence with technology. What do you think?
Definitely. I think one of the things the movie asked from the first scene, first there's a commercial for the perpetual pet, which is what Gemma is supposed to be working on in her professional life. And it's the premise of the commercial is that this kid is mourning the death of a pet, and then their parent offers them a perpetual pet, which is a robotic pet that will never die. And one of the lines in the commercial, it's like a pet that will live longer than you do, which is such an uncanny concept for a child. So already we see a parent putting a Band-Aid over a loss with something that is a robotic toy that will outlive them. And then you go right into the scene of Katie driving with her parents where she's playing with the perpetual pet. And her mom tries to draw her attention to the beautiful snowy mountain, and she's like, yeah, whatever. And then she goes back to playing with it. And it's a recurring theme throughout the movie. I think, this is not a new sentiment, but I think that technology, as long as it's existed, as long as we have been making things as humans, they often go very quickly from tools to weapons, and I just think that we're a little behind the 8 ball in the conversation about AI and its transition from tool to weapon, and I think it's just something that we all should talk about very openly as a society and decide how we feel about all of this, because it's moving very fast.
And what is your relationship with technology like?
It's interesting. I feel like a Luddite in some ways. I used to be much more on top of it all. I don't have smart devices. I don't, I try not to if I get served an ad in an app, I try to leave the app to go open to go to that website in a different place just so that I'm a little more mysterious to the algorithm, I guess. But in some ways, I'm totally tethered to it, just like everybody else is. I think it's hard to find someone today who doesn't have a relationship to technology, but I would not say I'm in like the top, 10% in terms of dependence. I'm probably up there, but not all the way. Not like Zoomers. They're amazing.
So just to wrap up, how do you look back now at this whole experience of a movie where not only do you star in, but you're also an executive producer?
So fondly, and it's not over yet. I see this, I see movies as happening, and any project is happening really in 3 acts: the prep, the filming, and then the post. And so we're still in the 3rd act. It's not over yet. This is the first time I've been an executive producer, and it's been such a joy to be able to be fully invested in it to the extent that I like to be invested in everything I work on. Obviously, it was a privilege to play Gemma and to be in the movie, but it also just was so much fun to be like deeply involved in the more granular aspects of getting it made and bringing it to the world. I've learned so much, and I've really loved that part of it because I care so much. It's nice to be allowed to care that much officially because I have the title. I can ask for the emails about what props have been cleared and what T-shirt logos are allowed to go in the movie and what locations we're going to use and all of that stuff. And I like the nitty-gritty. What can I say?